first Hawaiian triathlon was held 10 years ago on the island of Kona. 4,000 people want to race each year, but strict qualifying rules see that number whittled down to just 1,400. The ocean swim is held in water up to 30 metres deep. Many competitors become seasick if they're not used to the ocean swell.
Oh, looking good. Great, they'll get it from you. Take it!
The cycle leg crosses lava fields resembling a lunar landscape, with temperatures soaring around the mid-30s. The running stretch is the last leg in this superhuman test of endurance. The triathlon, an event attracting more and more women each year. One of them is Merewether mum Barbara Brown. She's qualified for the big 1988 Hawaiian event by winning her age group in the recent Great Lakes Triathlon, finishing in 14 hours, 9 minutes and 5 seconds.
I had dehydrated a little bit during the race. I hadn't realised, but it was purely a precautionary measure, and I guess that was all part of it. But I came through it well, and they put some fluid into me, and I believe I've recovered extremely well.
Now, just a week later, it's back on the road to pick up the gruelling training program again. It is in fact a road to somewhere for Barbara, who says she has a point to make. Why aren't more women her age keeping active? The training involves a cycle to Gosford and back every other day. When not cycling, it's a run between 25 and 35 kilometres. And almost every day of the week, it's a 3-kilometre swim. So what does it feel like to push your body to the limits? How do you keep going when everything in you screams, stop?
At any moment, did you feel like giving up?
Yes, I did at the end of that first 60-kilometre circuit. I could quite well have got off my bike and given up at that stage.
Barbara has known sporting success as a young woman. She represented New Zealand in tennis and netball, before falling victim at age 16 to anorexia.
Now, you haven't always been this fit and this healthy, have you?
No, I haven't. I was certainly very fit when I was young, but like a lot of teenagers, I dieted around about the age of 16 and I became anorexic. I also later on had 10 years of alcoholism, and I think I'm one of the very fortunate ones. I've been able to overcome both those problems. I've been something like 16 years free of alcoholism and probably about 9 free of anorexia. And I believe that by getting back into physical activity, that was the major way that I was able to recover. So I haven't always been as fit as I am now.
And it was just 2 years ago that Barbara's doctor told her to stop running altogether. She was diagnosed as having a ruptured disc in her back.
I believe that if you want something badly enough, yes, you can certainly put your mind to it and overcome the greatest of odds, really.
Although the men had no baggage in the hold, they were carrying small bags containing new army-style camouflage equipment. Since Sunday, the group has been from Tahiti to Sydney, into custody here, on to Singapore and Kuala Lumpur. Tonight, back in custody in Singapore for a flight that will take them back to Tahiti via Sydney. All that time, never passing through customs. Now identified as Tahitian Chinese Kanaks, Qantas has arranged special security aboard the flight, due to arrive at Sydney Airport tomorrow morning before joining another flight back to Tahiti.
there.
I can feel myself floating already.
Yep. You just lie back, pop your hands behind your head.
Oh. Good night.
So you're actually floating?
And I've asked him for that inquiry. And while it's...
This week we tackle longwall mining under residential areas. An inquiry begins tonight with residents stepping up their campaign to stop mining under their homes. Coal companies say, however, they have nothing to fear. And we visit Larry Pickering down on the farm. The millionaire cartoonist has put down his pen and taken up racehorses in a big way.
Craig, who says openly that he is gay, has lived in Australia for the past 7 years and has spent the last year here in Newcastle, where he shares a place with a male friend. He's self-employed and works with his partner in their own business. Craig has known for the past 3 years that he was carrying the AIDS virus, but says it took some time for the full ramifications to hit home.
My reaction to being positive, I suppose, was... I was affected by the fact that I was positive, but it didn't seem to affect me at the time. It didn't seem to hit home to me that really being positive does mean a lot in terms of looking at yourself and making sure that you do make necessary adjustments to cope with that in terms of lifestyle and attitude. So consequently, of course, I didn't do that at that stage. And there wasn't the dissemination of information then. People weren't aware, I wasn't aware. And it was only over time when the information was disseminated, particularly through the local gay newspapers down there, that people became to realise, I suppose, the importance of making alterations to lifestyle, etc. But it took time. You just can't change all of a sudden overnight from one thing to another. People that believe that, it's a joke. It does take time to do it. There does have to be a shift of consciousness, not only among for yourself, but group-wise. And it took me some time, certainly.
And what sort of changes, I guess, do you mean?
For me, I suppose it took a real change when I actually left Sydney and came up here to Newcastle, in terms of I wasn't frequenting the bars anymore, therefore my alcohol intake dropped dramatically. By that stage I was associated with a chap who didn't drink as a matter of course, therefore alcohol wasn't surrounding me as it had done. That was a great step. Also, I suppose I became more critical eventually of my own diet. And that was brought about by the fact that I realised I had these conditions, and that diet did seem to indeed play a big part in it.
He says for the first year and a half he showed no symptoms, but more than a year ago now he began developing AIDS-related health problems.
I think the first thing that was noticed by myself was a slight swelling in the legs, which has become somewhat more significant more recently. And it was simply a swelling in the legs on a daily basis, which went down at night. It's a purely mechanical thing. It has been found that it was the Kaposi's cells in the lymph nodes which was causing that was blocking the drainage from the legs. So there's the swelling. There's the Kaposi's sarcoma itself, and most recently I've suffered this bout of pneumocystis, which is a form of pneumonia, again often associated with having the AIDS virus. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to be a very bad bout, and I'm recovering rather well.
Recently, he's been told that he can have the life-prolonging drug AZT if he wants it. Craig has decided to go ahead with the treatment and sees it as a way of buying time.
Taking it. From a purely medical point of view, the statistics show from recent experiments that, or indications are that it doubles your life expectancy. So, taking it from there and looking at the literature, I did decide, yes, indeed, to take it, because as I see it, although I don't take the strict point of view of life expectancy, it does give me time to straighten out my attitudes towards things, and therefore, obviously, it gives me more time to do that. More time to be more and more optimistic about things. It's buying time, basically, to do such.
Many AIDS sufferers take a very gloomy attitude when they find out that they have the disease. But that's not Craig's approach at all. He's not fatalistic and has embraced more radical notions of psycho-immunity.
At the moment, I suppose I've taken a somewhat different approach than a lot of people. I'm tending to look towards the optimistic side. A lot of people, I suppose, have just been stressing the negative side, which is simply towards the expected lifespan that there is left. I suppose I'm looking towards the optimistic side simply because, I mean, what else do I have to look forward to if I don't look to it that way?
Craig's partner does not have the virus despite close contact. They believe it's his positive mental attitude that prevents him from catching it. Nevertheless, Craig admits that he worries about him.
I mean, it concerns me that he might contract it. Yes.
Just over a week ago, he decided to break the news to his family.
They are both very distressed. My mother is obviously manifesting it more visibly than my father. They're taking the horribly fatalistic approach that Craig has a certain life expectancy of so-and-so, and hopefully, given the treatment of AZT, it may be ×2 based on medical evidence. But that seems to be all they are willing to believe at this present stage. I'm trying to instill some greater optimism in them, but I mean, they aren't. And as I said to them, I mean, obviously, you must take this alternative view since it gives you a lot more optimism.
Have they known for a long time that you were gay, or was that also?
Yes, they have been aware of that fact for.
Sisters Select Foods in Paran is snaring the imagination of market marauders. For just under a month, they've been tempting incredulous passers-by with these reptilian titbits.
I thought you were going to say kilo of the crocodile meat there.
You can't fault the salesmanship, but they're just not biting.
I wouldn't even know how to eat it. It'll take a while, you know. It's just, people I think have just got to get used to seeing crocodile meat.
The taste, we're told, ranges from chicken through squid to pork. That's not the problem. The idea of eating a man-eater is. And then there's this little deterrent.
It's expensive, that's for sure.
BHP in fact has dispatched more steel into the Australian market in the 6 or 7 months to December or January than it did in the previous year, and nowhere is that reflected in any public report that I have seen.
The report pinpointed continuing difficulties in plant commissioning and equipment breakdowns for the production decline. But Mr Prescott says the report inadequately represents the situation.
The report, in its detailed paragraphs, admits that at Newcastle and Whyalla there was an increase in productivity, and it acknowledges that at Whyalla the plant was operating at 104% of capacity. It happens that at Port Kembla, where most of our steel is produced, we had this shortfall due to a scheduled maintenance event that is a perfectly normal activity for a steelmaker to undertake.
We aim to deter further Iranian aggression, not provoke it. They must know that we will protect our ships, and if they threaten us, they'll pay a price.
President Reagan is said to have personally ordered the strike after top-level defence meetings last night. The Pentagon says the attack was in retaliation for an incident last week. The Samuel B. Roberts was damaged by mines, illegally placed under the water surface by the Iranians.
Natal Aliano, also called Tony Aliano, is an expert bushwalker with survival training, skills that would make him feel at home in the Hunter Valley's vast outdoors. His first contact with Muswellbrook was on March 18th when he visited an all-night service station in a red 74 Mazda Capella. Aliano then kept out of sight until last Sunday evening when he was apparently seen running from a stormwater drain near Muswellbrook High School. Aliano is wanted over the shooting on January 18th of Andrew Hudswell. Hudswell was gunned down as he left Elaine Cove flat with Aliano's former girlfriend. With winter coming on, police believe the fugitive will be driven from his bush hideout, but don't expect him to give in without a fight.